Welcome back, History Seekers, to another episode of Fistory. Tonight, part 2 of the legend of the Golem, focusing most specifically on Rabbi Rosenberg's forgery. No, let's call a spade a spade. Forgery, 1906 forgery. That was used to sort of give, color and life to the legend of the Golem of Prague, which is now quite a big sort of like tourist draw for Prague, the city, and is like, but it is a forgery. I mean, when they say a forgery, so Rabbi Yudl, Yehuda Yudl Rosenberg, his Hebrew book, the Sefer Niflaot Maharal im Golem, the Wondrous Deeds of the Maharal of Prague with the Golem, which was published in Poland in 1909. Rosenberg, a Hasidic rabbi and prolific author, presented the book as a rediscovered manuscript written by the Maharal's son-in-law, Rabbi Yitzhak Katz, supposedly found in the Imperial Library of Metz. Scholars universally regard this as a literary fabrication by Rosenberg himself. The library never existed, and the text contains anachronisms and Polish-influenced details. It was, however, an immediate bestseller, and the version that popularized the legend worldwide in Hebrew, Yiddish, English, German, and Czech editions. So who was Rabbi Rosenberg? He has a Wikipedia page. Best known for his Hebrew translation of the Zohar and for popularizing the tale of the Golem of Prague. He did a Hebrew translation of the Zohar. What was the Zohar written in before it was written in Hebrew? So many questions. He was born as Yudka Rosenberg in 1860 in Gaberau, Poland, the son of Maria Gitli nie Siegelman and Israel Isaac Rosenberg. He grew up in the nearby town of Skarivsiu. I cannot pronounce Polish. Poland. It's somewhere in Poland, right? Age 17, he married, became a rabbi, and served in Tarlow, Lublin, Warsaw, and Lutz. In 1913, he immigrated to Canada. Well, I'm sure Canada was happy to have him, where he became the spiritual leader of Toronto's Beth Jacob congregation, which was founded in 1899 by a group of Polish-born Jews. During his close to 6 years in the city, Rosenberg founded the Eitz Chaim Talmud Torah on Darcy Street in a building which was once an Italian club. He moved to Montreal in 1919, where he became the chief rabbi of the United Hebrew Orthodox Congregations, a group of synagogues serving immigrant Ashkenazi communities, and vice chairman of the Jewish Communities Rabbinic Council, which he served as until his death in Montreal at age 75 on October 23, 1935. And I'm absolutely sure that he did nothing but great things for Canada. This is pretty funny though, right? So he did a Hebrew translation of the Zohar, which he hoped would revive interest in the Kabbalah. Okay. He was a prolific author. His writing ranged from an anthology of the sciences, which are a source of scientific knowledge for Jews unfamiliar with European languages. He is perhaps, this is great. He's perhaps most famous for his stories about the Golem of Prague, which he attributed to the Maharal of Prague, published in Hebrew as Nifla Ot Maharal in 1909. Rosenberg himself later translated the Hebrew text into a rather different Yiddish version, also available in English translation. Oh, interesting. So the version we're reading is not the original Hebrew version. It was translated into Yiddish and then into English. I wonder if there's any differences in the text, like whether there's more Kabbalistic wooery in there, for example. Rosenberg's text claims to be an edition of a 300-year-old manuscript found in an imperial library in Metz, but recent scholarship recognizes the text as a fictional work by Rosenberg. This is obvious. Excuse me, if you just read it. And a literary hoax. Listen to this. Rather than being based on an old manuscript, it lifts plots and characters directly from The Jew's Breastplate by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes. And Rabbi Yudl himself admitted copying directly from a Russian translation of Arthur Conan Doyle. Not so much a case of forgery as one of mischaracterization. As China Lehman notes, there is evidence that Rabbi Yudl himself admitted the stories were meant to be popular fiction. I'm so sick of this, right? Like, oh, yes, I made it up. I mean, yes, I made it up. I did lie. I told everyone it was a 300-year-old text, and I lifted it from Arthur Conan Doyle. But it's not quite so much a case of forgery as of mischaracterization. In my mind, it was very real, and it was very important to get this out, to fight anti-Semitism, and white people having white countries in Canada. So this is the background. Here's a rather fetching picture of Rabbi Rosenberg. Looks like a stand-up guy to me. So we are going to continue. Now, as we were last episode, if you will remember, where were we up to precisely? Oh yes, that's right. It was the story of the Gentiles were going around digging up the bodies of Christian boys and deliberately throwing them into Jewish houses so that they could rile up anti-Semitism because they owed the Jews of Prague money. Completely honestly, of course, right? Don't want to hear any suggestion that any of these loan arrangements might have been improper or that these people would be being bankrupted or anything like that. If they were, right? Like, why did they take the loan in the first place, right? Look, you signed on for a 30% interest rate. I don't know what you're fucking complaining about. Maybe we'll take your daughter as collateral. And the tale, of course, of the Gentile butcher who owed the Maharal a lot of money, or owed someone in the Jewish community like a lot of money. He's like, I know how I'll get back at them. I'll plant the body of a Gentile child in their house, and then I'll summon the police, and they'll get done. For blood libel. And so he sewed the boy inside a pig, and then used the cart to transport it across the city. But the Golem, with its incredible sense of antiseptic smell or something, discovered the dude with the cart, beat the crap out of him, and dragged him off to the police, where they discovered the boy's body hidden inside a pig. Now that I have read this thing about how it was lifted from Sherlock Holmes, from Arthur Conan Doyle, this does make me wonder whether that entire story was just lifted from Arthur Conan Doyle, right? That there's some plot about a dude being sewed up in a pig and na. Anyway, let us continue with a curious tale of Rabbi Yudl Rosenberg, the Golem and the Wondrous Deeds of the Maharal of Prague. Now, as we're setting this up, remember, they've had a disputation, And most of the Christians are basically like fine with the answers of the Jews in the disputation, right? Like, it's fine. They have very, very wordy answers to things like, why don't you believe in the divinity of Jesus, and all the questions. But there's one guy. Right? I forget his name. It's in here somewhere. Thaddeus, the infamous priest Thaddeus, right? He's a wrong one. He is very, very antiseptic. And he thinks that the Maharal is a sorcerer. I don't know where he got that idea, right? The Maharal only basically turned soil into a animated golem that was going around attacking the populace or defending the honor of the Moorish people, depending, of course, upon your perspective, right? It's not sorcery, right? The thing that Christians just don't understand, right, is it's not sorcery, right? Like when you've got, the special names of God, it's like having a crypto password or something, right? You just, right? Okay, whatever. So, but again, none of this is true. So, again, this is a classic, in my mind, it was real kind of thing, foisted off onto the Gentile population as a real story. 13. The astonishing tale of the healer's daughter. So, by the way, just to let you know, all these chapters are sort of meant to be sort of little standalone stories, but they sort of run together. So I'm just gonna read some more of these. Also, you can please donate to the channel with Ko-Fi or Entropy. Although I believe people are having trouble with Entropy. They're currently being attacked by the Canadian government because they dare to facilitate people sending money to people to their political opponents. So I don't know whether it's working, but Ko-Fi, you can you can just donate some money. You can sign up for a tier. I've got a $5 tier, $10 tier. Look, just look, I do this for the love of the game. But Muco Max caffeinated custard drink, the custard that you can chew, is pricey, and I like to relax with a nice Muco Max after work. Those things aren't cheap, so if you could donate some coin, that would be great. Right. So, chapter 13, the astonishing tale of the healer's daughter. In Prague, there was a Jewish healer called Moritzi, who, although estranged from Judaism, was still considered a Jew. That's a weird kind of phrase. By whom? He had a 15-year-old daughter who strayed from the straight and narrow path and was lured to convert out of her faith and become Christian. Oh yeah, so this is the thing that you will see increasingly through these, right? That the evil Christians, right? They lie in wait, trying to seduce pure young Jewish women over to the evil sides of Christianity, right? So they can get them to inform on their Jewish brethren. Okay. One night during the intermediary days of Passover, she ran away from her father's house to the infamous priest Thaddeus, who had a reputation as a virulent anti-Semite. He ceaselessly planned stratagems to spread a net at the feet of Jewish girls, who would then fall into his trap and convert. Yes, those Christians, they do like to do that. This incident was connected to another one that occurred in Prague. A Christian woman from a village near Prague had been a housemaid in the city for several years. During the winter, she was one of those who would kindle the Jews' ovens on Sabbath. Since she was always going in and out of their houses, she was well known in the Jewish community. She was a Shabbos goy. It so happened that after Purim, a quarrel broke out between the maid and the family that she served, whereupon she suddenly fled from her employer's house at night. No one knew where she had gone. Assuming the maid had surely run off to her native village, the family was not overly concerned about her departure and told no one about it. But no one knew exactly where she lived. When the priest Thaddeus was informed that a Christian maid had disappeared in Prague, he decided to use this incident as a pretext for initiating a blood libel against the Jews of the city. And since he always secretly inquired and probed about doings in the Maharal's house, he learned that the rabbi had gotten himself a mute servant whom he would use to guard the Jewish quarter against a blood libel. This is the Golem he's talking about, right? So the Maharal disguised the golem as a mute Gentile. So the golem could go out into the rest of the city and, do stuff, right? Presumably also on Shabbat when, they were forbidden to do any work. Therefore, the priest fabricated the accusation in a way that the Maharal's shamashim would be caught, and perhaps even the Maharal himself would be implicated. What is a shamashim? Sounds like a kind of like some kind of like cleaning cloth or something. Buy a shamashim. What is it? What the hell is a shamashim? Oh my god. I'm still a bit sick, bros. Definition. Excuse me. Oh, it's just a servant, right? It's a servant, right? A servant at the synagogue, right? It was at this time that the healer's daughter fell into the priest's hands and was prepared to convert. She lived at his place, locked into a secret room in the courtyard of his cloister. Then the priest enticed her with the following words. On the day that the cardinal makes you a Christian, he will ask you why you are converting and what prompted you to do this, for it is customary to ask such questions. Your reply should be, quote, I'm doing this because I can't stand the cruel customs of the Jews who, according to their belief, slaughter a Christian every year and use his blood to mix it into the matzahs they bake for Passover. Again, I said this on the previous episode, but this was not the original accusation, and where this whole sticking blood into the bread thing comes from is, I don't know. I suspect it was a diversionary technique to distract from the actual accusations of human sacrifice. The priest also coached her to tell the cardinal that a few days before Passover, she herself had seen the city rabbi's two shamashim coming to her father's house one night. Quote, tell the cardinal that one was an old man of short stature. The other was a young man of average height with black beard who could not speak but only gesture with his fingers as do deaf mutes. So the golem had a beard. Okay. Weird. Did that... Is there like... See, when I imagine the golem, right? And I, dear listener, I imagine if you, imagine the golem, right? You would think of something made of clay, not of something made of flesh. But this, seems to be like, he's got a beard. He's, he looks like a Gentile. He's like, I guess like the perfect Shabbos goy, and he can't even speak. So he cannot betray any of your secrets. They told your father that the city rabbi had sent him a flask of blood for Passover. Your father paid a lot of money for this blood, which was mixed into the dough of the matzahs, and that is why you became terribly disgusted with eating matzahs and with the entire faith of the Jews and decided to convert to Christianity. Now, again, this is very indicative of the sort of, the Jewish view of Christianity, okay, right? Like, not that someone would convert to Christianity, because of the light of Christ, or, because they wished forgiveness, they wanted to be around sort of Christian people in a Christian society, full of like forgiveness and love. No, right? They converted for revenge, okay? The priest also taught her to say that, according to rumor, it was learned that the Christian maid who had disappeared had fallen victim to the Jews who had slaughtered her and taken her blood to distribute it among the Jews before the recent Passover holiday. The day arrived when the healer's daughter met with the cardinal, and it came to pass just as the priest Thaddeus had thought. The cardinal asked her the customary questions, and she replied craftily, just as the priest had instructed. She also asked the cardinal, quote, do not implicate my father in this accusation, for he had nothing to do with this matter and would not want to be a witness in this case. You see, all the Jews of Prague are afraid of the rabbi of the city. This is the Maharal, who is considered a holy man by them and whose command they obey meticulously. The remarks of the healer's daughter, who had converted, spread quickly through the town like an arrow out of a bow, and a great fear fell upon the Jews. On account of this, the cardinal was obliged to submit a protocol to the court, even though he knew in his heart that this was just a false accusation. How did he know that this was just a false accusation? Well, obviously, right? In any case, he could not hide this matter from the priest Thaddeus, who urged him to rush the protocol to court. After the protocol was prepared, the cardinal sent the Maharal a copy of its contents so he could devise a plan for the truth to surface. The malicious contents of the protocol showed that the priest Thaddeus had written it. The document declared that the apostate girl had testified to the cardinal that the Jews of Prague had mixed Christian blood into the matzahs this past Passover, that from the rumor in town, she had learned that this blood was from the Gentile maid who had disappeared several weeks before Passover, that this blood had been distributed among the Jews by the Maharals to Shamashim, who took a lot of money for it, and that the Maharal's hands were no doubt besmirched by the blood of this innocent soul. When the Maharal found out that this protocol had been sent to the court, he realized the first thing the court would do is order the two Shamashim seized from their beds at night and jailed, as was always the custom. Well, yes, they would be arrested. Therefore, the Maharal decided upon the following course of action. He knew that this apostate girl was not familiar with Yosele the Golem's face. Yosele is the name that they gave to the Golem. And since the Prague poor never lacked raggle-taggle blind, deaf, mute, and lame people, he sent one of his resolute men to choose one deaf mute from among the poor who somewhat resembled Yosele the Golem in height and age and bring him to the Maharal. The Maharal's wishes were fulfilled. When a deaf mute who knew absolutely nothing of the events in town nor of the news on everyone's lips was brought before the Maharal, the rabbi said, quote, "I want the Golem hidden in a different house and have him stripped of his usual weekday garb and dressed in other clothing. And then I want the Golem's clothing brought to me." Then the Maharal added, "And now prepare a fine supper with brandy for the deaf mute and lie him down in Yosele the Golem's bed in the room of the rabbinic court." So this is the thing I find like really common in all of these stories, right? There is always lying, there is always deception, there is always double dealing, but it is always framed as completely honorable because the Gentiles want to destroy us. So therefore, we have no choice but to subvert the wishes of the court and no. Remember, this is in 1909. Okay, so this is sort of in the in the lead up to the further of the rise of both Zionism and Bolshevism in Europe. And although Rabbi Rosenberg moved to Canada in 1913, he would have still presumably been in touch with other Jews in Poland, the rise of Bolshevism and the rise of Zionism. So this seems to me as very, very much tailored for a Western Gentile audience to basically, sort of browbeat them and be like, listen, there's no reason why you need to be like afraid of us, like, et cetera, et cetera. The deaf mute was astounded by the honor accorded to him and enjoyed immensely the fine food and brandy he had been served, the like of which he had perhaps never tasted in his life. Then he laid down and slept. Okay, so you pluck a random poor Gentile off the street, you shower him in gifts, but secretly you are actually about to hand him over to the authorities. Okay, sounds perfectly legitimate to me. Take the deaf mute's clothing away, the Maharal instructed, and replace it with Yosele the Golem's clothing, which everyone recognizes as the garb of the Shemesh of the rabbinic court. In the middle of the night, the police surrounded the house of the old Shemesh, Rabbi Abraham Chaim. They entered his living quarters, took him from his bed, arrested him, and brought him to the prison. At the same time, other police surrounded the courtroom where the Golem slept. Some of them entered, and assuming that the mute second Shemesh lay on the bed, began to rouse him from his sleep. After much effort, they succeeded in waking the mute stranger, who was deep in a sweet and contented sleep. Yeah, not for long. When the deaf mute woke, he saw policemen standing over him, holding spears and swords. He was terror-stricken and did not know what they wanted from him, but the police signaled him to put on the clothing beside him. Frightened and confused, he did not realize the clothes were not his. He dressed, and then he too was taken to the prison. Morning came, and Prague was in turmoil because of the terrible news concerning the accusation against the Maharals to Shamashim. Everyone was afraid that the Maharal himself might be caught in this evil trap, God forbid. No one knew what to do. The only help they could offer was cries and groans and recitation of the Psalms. The trial was set for 1 month hence, and the Maharal too was invited by the court to attend, according to King Rudolph's edict. But although the Maharal was neither tranquil nor composed, he did his best to be helpful in this matter, of course. First, he ordered learned and zealous men to thoroughly investigate the home where the Christian maid had worked, to discover where she was born and where her family lived, in order to know where to look for her, for she surely had fled to her hometown. They also probed assiduously the reason for her flight. Okay? I mean, obviously nothing bad could have happened to her. All right? The inquiry suggested that the search for the girl focus on 4 places, 2 villages and 2 small towns only several kilometers from Prague. The Maharal took 8 men and sent them secretly in groups of 2 to these 4 places, where they were to stroll about furtively and look for the runaway Christian maid. So he sent a bunch of spies to a bunch of towns around Prague, right, to like try and like suss this out. Okay. 12 days passed. When all 8 messengers returned empty-handed, the Maharal was overcome with much anguish and grief. 3 days later, the Maharal summoned Yudl the Golem at night and asked him, "Do you know the Christian maid who used to light the ovens in Jewish houses on Shabbat?" He then added, "Because of the girl's disappearance from the city, a blood libel accusation has suddenly been leveled against the Jews." Yudl the Golem signaled that he knew the girl well and would even be able to recognize her among 1,000 people. How did he signal this? He's like using American Sign Language? Don't worry about it. Thereupon, the Maharal wrote a letter to her in the local language in the name of the master of the house where the maid had been employed, requesting her to return to him. So he forged a letter claiming to be from this girl's employer. She did not work for the Maharal or the synagogue. She would just help them light the ovens on Shabbat. So he forged a letter in the name of the master of her ex-employer, requesting her to return to him. The letter stated that he regretted the sin he had committed against her and the wrong she had suffered of late in the house. Asking for forgiveness, he begged and cajoled her to come back at once, and she would lack for nothing at his house. Okay. For this reason, he is sending her a special messenger, this mute, a member of his family, along with money for travel expenses, and hiring a special wagon to return immediately to Prague. Money and deception. Okay. Adding flattering remarks, he further urged her not to deny his request and plea, but rather hire a special wagon at once and return with the messenger to Prague. In the letter, the Maharal also sent sufficient money to enable her to have more than enough for traveling expenses. Then the Maharal gave Yudl the Golem the letter with the money and said, "This maid is surely in one of these 4 places. Be quick and very persistent in your search for her. Walk around for several days in each town and look for her diligently until you find her. And when you do, give her this letter and the money and make sure you bring her back to Prague. In other words, don't leave her until she returns to Prague with you, and you must accomplish this mission during the 2 weeks before the trial begins." So there are 2 weeks, 4 towns. Okay. The Maharal then dressed the Golem in Gentile garb and gave him food for the journey. Why does the Golem need to eat? This is very, very strange. Like the Golem appears to basically be a mute, brainwashed Gentile at this point. This is very, very, very weird. Okay, right? What does the Golem like to eat? Right? Cheese and bread, right? Does he ever get like drunk and crash out and reconsider his role in life? Does he ever get like drunk and be like, "I want to be free"? Scroll graffiti on the inside of the Maharal's house, be like, "Let me go, you bastard." The 2 more weeks passed quickly. The day of the trial was near. Since Yudl the Golem had not yet returned, the heartbroken Maharal decreed a day of fasting for all of Prague on the day before the trial. He also issued a proclamation for all the Jews to assemble at dawn in the synagogues and prayer houses on the day before the trial to recite the complete book of Psalms with wails and weeping. In the great synagogue, the Maharal himself went up to the prayer stand to recite Psalms, and the entire congregation wept with him. On the morning of the trial, the masses, most of them Christians, started gathering in front of the tall building made of hewn stones and dedicated to great tribunals. Then the judges began arriving at the courthouse. The priest Thaddeus and the healer's apostate daughter came in a covered wagon. Then the 2 Shamashim, bound in chains and surrounded by many guards, were brought to the courthouse. Except, of course, one of them was not the Shamashim. One of them was like this mute Gentile kid they snatched off. Well, not exactly snatched, but enticed off the street. I don't know, mate. Fucking, this is bloody sussy, mate. The Maharal, accompanied by the head of the Jewish community, Reb Mordecai Meisel, arrived in a beautiful chariot. Oh, of course they did. The presiding judge rang the gold bell before him to signal the start of the trial. First, he turned to the old Shamesh, Rab Abraham Chaim, and said, "Do you admit your guilt in distributing Christian blood among the Jews before Passover so they can mix it into their matzahs?" the judge asked. Again, look, I'm hardly like an expert on all the blood libel stuff. I have yet to like fully dig into it, right? But the stuff I have seen is that this was not really a trial question. This is more like something that sort of, again, if you believe the stories, right, like got about and got all the peasantry like riled up, basically, rather than the actual trials of like Hugh, is it Hugh of Lancaster, and these other cases where the charge was ritual murder, not anything like this. "I haven't got the faintest idea about any of this," the old Shamash replied. Then the presiding judge took small flasks filled with a red liquid and asked the deaf mute with gestures if he had carried such flasks. The mute, assuming that those flasks surely contained red brandy and that the judge wanted to offer him a glass, nodded to indicate. Yes, yes. What the? You're getting a deaf mute to testify? What the fuck is this? Is this shit? I mean, I have seen a lot of like weird trials in my day, but like, okay. He nodded to indicate yes, yes. Joy and desire suffused his face as he put his finger in his mouth. Then a roar broke out in the courtroom, for the priest Thaddeus had risen and addressed the judges. "This mute is an honest witness. He is indicating yes to testify that it is true that he had in his hands flasks of this sort filled with blood. That's why he put his finger in his mouth to show that it was this blood that the Jews had consumed." Oh, please. Like, this is just, look. Oh, those crazy Gentiles. Have you ever been inside a Gentile court? They'll believe anything you know. Actually, given the current state of Britain, maybe I shouldn't laugh too hard at that, actually. The anti-Semites present agreed with the priests, because they were anti-Semites, obviously. But many in the courtroom laughed at this and declared that the deaf mute's gesture of yes indicated that he would willingly drink a glass of red brandy. I don't know. How does blood look like brandy? Is anyone... Is this meant... Are these flasks meant to be like made of glass? Mate, I've got so many questions, right? If I was a lawyer, I'd just be like, Your Honor, this is bullshit, bro. After this, the lawyer brought in by the defendants took a knife and, as the deaf mute watched, passed it across his throat to indicate slaughter. He pointed to the Maharal and to the small flasks, asking by signs if he knew something of this matter. What the fuck is this? The deaf mute grew pale and shook his head to signify no. At this point, the priest Thaddeus said, quote, "The deaf mute assumed you're asking him if he wanted to slaughter the rabbi, and that's why he said no." Nobody knows what the fucking deaf mute like is thinking. Like, when they say these kids like a deaf mute, right? Is he also like touched in the head? Like, is he also retarded, right? Like, because the way I'm kind of like imagining this scene in my own headcanon, right, is it's basically like just a completely like retarded like dude, like, oh god, whatever, right? When the defense counsel began to argue with the priest, the presiding judge rang the gold bell to silence the contenders. He then summoned the apostate girl to testify. Don't be afraid of telling everything you know pertaining to this trial. And then, in a smooth-tongued manner, point by point, As recorded in the protocol and reflecting her testimony before the cardinal, she told the judges, see, she was a smooth tongue, those smooth-tongued Christians, you know. She told the judges, these two shamashim brought the blood-filled flasks, try saying that 10 times fast, to my father by order of the rabbi. My father paid handsomely for this and put the money into the hands of this old shamesh. The flask of the blood was held by the second deaf shamesh, from whose hand I myself took the flask to hide it, according to my father's wishes. How do you know that the Christian maid who disappeared is the victim whose blood this is? Okay, so where did these flasks full of blood actually come from? Right? Because so this guy is saying there's no the maid just disappeared, right? So no one has died. So there is no blood, but there are suddenly flasks of blood. Is he saying like the Christians like forged them, or just like, I don't know, like killed something and like, oh man, I'm so confused, right? So yes, how do you know that this is a Christian maid's blood? She replies, before the Shamashim left my father's house, this old Shamesh shook my father's hand as a mark of departure and said the following: don't worry, Mr. Moritzi, when the cold of winter arrives, the one above will find us another victim to light our ovens on the Shabbat. Bum, bum, bum. Now the defense counsel approached the apostate girl. Do you know well the faces of the two Shamashim who visited your father? And are you absolutely sure they were the ones who stand before you? Of course it is they, she replied with a laugh. I would recognize them in the dark. When the defense counsel saw that she was impudently sticking to her story, he requested the judges send for her father and bring him to the court to enable us to cross-examine him and see if his testimony coincides with his daughter. You can really see the sort of the lawyery tendency of the rabbinates in this kind of, this whole thing. Is like, oh yes, well he said, and then they said the other thing, and oh my god, she was sticking to a story. Mate, this is such a weird blast from the past. I mean, I guess 1909. None of the really bad crap in the 20th century had happened yet. So this is what they would lean on to browbeat the Gentiles with. But the presiding judge answered, even before the onset of the trial, a letter was sent to the father summoning him to testify as a witness. However, 2 weeks have passed, and we have learned that the father has moved out of Prague altogether to a place unknown. And what a coincidence. Hence, it will not be possible to delay the trial over this. When the presiding judge had completed his remarks, the sound of tumult and noise of a shouting crowd were suddenly heard outside the windows of the courthouse. The people within grew alarmed and ran to the windows. I have a feeling this story is about to be neatly wrapped up, bros. What's going on? They asked, like Gentiles. What's happening out there? The stupid Gentiles asked. They became aware at once that marvelous events were taking place outside. This is what happened. In my mind. The real Yosele the Golem had suddenly appeared, driving his wagon in great haste and dispatch into the crowd in front of the courthouse. In the wagon sat the very same Christian maid who had suddenly disappeared from her master's house and who Yosele the Golem had found in the village where she had lived with her family. See, nothing happened to her, right? She was fine the entire time. You silly Gentiles and your silly paranoias and your anti-Semitic. She's fine. She's, look, you know, oh God, was the end ever in doubt, bros, right? The letter with the money he had given her had worked to persuade her. The forgery, let's call a spade a spade. The forgery with money he had given her had worked to persuade her under false pretenses to return with him to Prague. When the wagon had passed through the street where the Maharal lived, the Golem stopped and jumped from the wagon to inform the rabbi that he had found the maid. He also wanted to change clothes. He removed the garb of the Gentiles he was wearing and put on his Shabbat clothes, for his weekday clothing was now being worn by the deaf-mute stranger who was then in the courtroom. seeing that the Maharal was not at home and learning that he was in the tall stone building, the golem returned to the wagon, jumped into it, and himself began to drive the horses to the courthouse, right into the crowd gathered there. This is why a great tumult broke out in the crowd and loud shouts were heard. Hey, this guy needs an editor. Like honestly. Some cried out, "Woe unto us," mortally afraid that the horse-drawn wagon might run over them. Don't worry, they didn't have Muslims in Prague at that point. Others emitted shouts of joy, especially the Jews, crying out a lusty hurrah, for they recognized the true Yosele the Golem and the Christian maid, and they realized that a miracle had occurred. It's not a fucking miracle, right? The Maharal bribed the Maharal bribed the girl with a forgery and got her to come back to look, don't worry about it, mate. Don't worry about it. This was the reason for their happy cries of hurrah and their applause. Before long, the news reached the courthouse, which explained the tumult outside. Yes, the tumult. Get on with it. The judges ordered the newcomers into the courtroom. As soon as the golem saw the Maharal sitting there, he jumped towards him. By means of odd gestures, which prompted a roar of laughter to break out in the courtroom, he indicated to the Maharal that he had found the missing maid and would show her to him. The golem just come up and he's just like, what fucking fever dream is this? My God. But the priest Thaddeus, he's a bad one. He's a bad one, right? Like, not all Christians, right? But this guy Thaddeus, right, probably had like Orthodox tendencies or something. Might have been a secret Catholic, okay, right? Not like a proper evangelical Protestant. But the priest Thaddeus and the apostate girl were terrified at hearing that the Christian maid had been found. The apostate girl fainted and fell to the ground, causing an even greater uproar in the courtroom until they finally brought her to. Oh my God, Thaddeus and the apostate girl, they're like, we have found out our false plan to blood libel the Jews of Prague is come undone. We secretly knew the entire time that the girl was still alive. Did they? How? Where's the blood come from? Wait, look, don't worry about it, mate. The presiding judge then rang his gold bell for silence and order. He called the Maharal and sat him down in a chair beside him. Please tell us, the judge said, who is this second mute man who brought the lost housemaid, and where was she found? The Maharal then told the judges all about his laborious efforts from beginning to end to reveal the truth. Everyone can see that this is a false accusation concocted by the healer's daughter, who is a traitor to her people and to her faith. I was helped by heaven to come up with clever ideas and good plans to save the lives of poor people, innocent of all harmful intent, from unwarranted punishment. Isn't all of the shit, right? Okay, so the Maharal then basically admits that he lured this deaf-mute Gentile off the street under false pretenses, right? Drugged him, stuck him in the bed, changed the golem's clothes, got him arrested. Wouldn't the court be like, yeah, that's great and all, but a bunch of the stuff you did is like very, very illegal. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, mate. Right? I just hope it has a happy ending. The Maharal's wisdom astounded the judges, and his remarks amazed them. Bitch, please. They immediately they were so amazed, right? By the Maharal. They're like, this guy, he's truly the best among us, right? Who cares if he broke the law a little bit, right? He did it for the best of reasons. This is just completely not the way crap worked in medieval Europe. This is just whatever. They immediately sent for the master of the house, for whom the missing Christian maid had worked. When he entered the courtroom, he recognized her at once. The maid said she had run away because of the slanderous remarks that were being said about her. She also displayed the letter on whose account she had returned to Prague with the mute messenger. At that point, the presiding judge could no longer contain himself. He kissed the Maharal on the forehead and shook his hand lovingly. We thank you for your efforts, your labor, and your wisdom, which has saved us from rendering a guilty verdict against innocent men. Whoa. The accused were immediately freed, and in their stead, the apostate girl was sentenced to 6 years in prison for perjury. The Maharal, of course, Didn't get done for perjury, right? The priest Thaddeus returned home humiliated and very furious. Ha, suck it, Gentile, suck it, Thaddeus. Your attempts to malign the Jewish people have failed. Why don't you go and pray to your God? Priest Thaddeus returned home humiliated and very furious, just as it is written about Haman. Of course, you got to bring Haman into it. From the book of Esther. His head covered in mourning, while the Maharal returned home happy and highly esteemed, and the entire city of Prague too rang with joyous cries. And then everybody clapped. This is like a Reddit post. and then everybody clapped, and it was like it was totally awesome. Oh fuck, mate, dude. So that's, there we go. That's me. I don't know. Should we do another one? I got like 15 minutes. Let's let's do the next one. Chapter 14. Look, let's see how far we can like get through it, shall we? 45 minutes is a little short for a Fistory, but I do like these ones where I just get like to read like weird stuff from the past. It's cool. Chapter 14, the wondrous and famous story known as the daughter's misfortune. In Prague lived an immensely wealthy and honored wine merchant named Reb Mikliberger. Only in his cellar were the choicest wines available, and only from him did all the priests and army officers purchase their wine. This merchant had a beautiful and intelligent 16-year-old only daughter who managed the wine shop and supervised the sale of wine, for she was fluent in several languages and could deal with all kinds of people. Even the priest Thaddeus, boo Thaddeus, infamous as a vicious anti-Semite, always bought his wine there. See, even Thaddeus, right, couldn't stay away, right, from the merchant with the best wine in town. But he cast his evil eye on this only daughter who always sat in the shop. His plan was to ensnare her and lure her to his house, where he could entice her to convert to Christianity. Bum, bum, bum. Okay. So adept was Thaddeus in this sort of endeavor that a number of Jewish girls had fallen into his net in this fashion. But with this Jewish girl, he had no links or familiarity to enable him to drag her into his net, for she was truly a modest maiden of excellent virtue. Moreover, her parents were honorable, God-fearing people of distinguished lineage who watched over their only daughter like the apple of their eye. She wasn't even permitted to stroll outdoors on Shabbats and holidays. Oof, mate, I think the feminists would be a bit mad about that, honestly. But anyway, the priest hit upon the following ruse, that crafty priest. He began buying wine on credit. This only daughter was in charge of the accounts book and recorded all of the bills. After a while, she sent her servant to the priest with the bill that showed his debt. The priest paid in full, but his scheme was to create a dispute over the bill that would oblige the only daughter to come to his house with her accounts book to show him the error. Dun, dun, dun. And he succeeded in this stratagem, for the servant came several times with the bill, and he paid it in a proper fashion. A few months later, when the servant was sent with the bill, the priest told him, "According to my accounts book, this bill is wrong. You just want to take money unwarrantedly for 10 more bottles of wine than is due to you." "It is not me who wrote the bill," the servant apologized, "but the winery owner's daughter." "Then it is she who made a mistake in the bill," the priest replied, "and when she comes here with her accounts book, I will show her the mistake." Cunning Thaddeus. He's gonna lure her in and then tell her about the love of Lord Jesus Christ. And tell her sweet sounding lies to get her like to convert to Christianity. A fate worse than death. Fuck me. When they arrived, the priest told the only daughter, quote, "Your servant is demanding payment for 10 additional bottles of wine, but I'm asking you to give me an honest accounting and to tell me how much I owe you according to your accounts book." She acceded, but the second bill was exactly like the first. The priest marveled at this and in so doing pretended to recall something he had forgotten. I just remembered this bill is correct, he called out, but I am right too, because some weeks ago, 10 bottles of wine were delivered to me that tasted just like vinegar, and I didn't want to accept them. That's why they weren't written down in my accounts book. This astonished the wine merchant's only daughter greatly, because she knew she always sent this priest the choicest wines, even though he was an anti-Semite. See? The priest then ordered his servant to go to the cellar and bring up the 10 wine bottles that had been set aside in a special place in a separate basket. When the wine was brought up, the priest told the only daughter, quote, I opened up only this one bottle that isn't full. And if you don't believe me, open another bottle and taste from it, and you'll see it's vinegar, not wine. She agreed to this. She took the bottle from the basket and ordered her servant to open it and pour a glass for her to taste. Now, the priest had previously done something to ensure that all wine would definitely be considered wine of libation. Oh my God, he'd blessed the wine, bros. Oh my God, right? Because that's how it works, right? Like that's how you make like the host during the liturgy, right? You just like you bless the wine and then you store it in the cellar. Right, and if you like give it to like a random Jewish girl, like they'll convert. Oh fuck me! Sorry. Yeah, that's totally how that works, bro. Totally, right. The only daughter never even imagined it was forbidden to drink this wine, even if it were just plain wine that now belonged to the Christians. When she tasted the wine, she saw there was nothing wrong with it, and she finished the entire glass. But this wine is perfectly good, she told the priest with a laugh. What is your complaint about this wine? The priest feigned surprise. He also tasted the wine and declared it truly is a good wine. And he ordered another bottle opened. The only daughter tasted first and noted that this wine too was good. Then the priest drank and said, now I see I was mistaken and you're right. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of like the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, right? Like, you know, sort of like 13th, 14th century like fairy tales, like all the good ones, right? Like Hansel and Gretel and Little Red Riding Hood, and you know, there's many sort of like themes of like young impressionable girls or like orphans getting like, you know, sucked into you know, situations with sort of like weirdly deformed people living out on the edge of society, which, you know, don't read too much into it, right? With this said, the priest, amid flattering remarks, he's such a flatterer. I mean, he's a what kind of priest is this guy meant to be, right? Like, so Rosenberg claims this was like written 300 years before 1900, so 1600. So that's after the Reformation. Is this priest supposed to be like a Protestant, Catholic? He probably doesn't know, right? Probably to him, all Christians are like literally the same, right? With this said, the priest, amid flattering remarks, began to ask pardon of the only daughter, whom he had wrongly suspected, and he took her hand in his and pressed it humbly and affectionately. Even though she had never before given her hand to another man, now she did not dare resist him, and the wine of libation she had drunk helped her along in this. in a amazing sort of trope reversal, bros, in the ultimate Uno card, it is the priest that is like seducing the young Jewish girl. Okay. I have no ill feelings towards you, was her reply, for all people are just flesh and blood and can make mistakes. The priest then paid her all the money due to her according to her bill, and with each exchange of conversation, spoke more fondly and amicably to her. As for the only daughter, drinking the non-kosher wine and shaking hands with the priest burned in her like a snake's venom, and feeling a change of heart, she began to enjoy the priest's remarks. She too engaged him in conversation and grew increasingly attached to him. When she left, she gave her hand to the priest of her own accord and parted from him with such affectionate words he felt he could invite her to visit him occasionally. Whoa, mate. The priest. I think he's in, bro. A bit of that libation like wine. Sedi Sapiente fist reading romance novels. It's a weird romance novel, isn't it? God. Oh, dude. The priest's remarks were persuasive enough to corrupt her. From then on, she began sending him letters by means of his servant who came to purchase his wine. He too wrote her letters, and each time drew her closer and closer, until finally she secretly began visiting the priest by herself. This continued for a while, until one time the only daughter did not come home to sleep, but disappeared like a stone in water. A great commotion ensued, and loud cries were heard in her parents' house, for they had no other children besides this only daughter. The parents began to look for her, and to probe and inquire of other people if they had seen her. Then a man informed them that he had seen her on the night she disappeared, walking through the narrow lane that leads to the priest Thaddeus's cloister. This awful news grieved them bitterly. They understood she was in dire straits if she had fallen into his snare. This is never. Is he talking to her warmly about Jesus Christ? I mean, the implication clearly, right, is he's trying to get into her pantaloons. But like why is she so enamored with the priest, right? Like his honeyed words about forgiveness and universal love, no doubt, right? This awful news grieved them bitterly, and they understood that she was in dire straits if she had fallen into his snare. They ran to the priest in tears. "Have pity on us," they cried out, "and return our daughter to us." But the priest dismissed their pleas with laughter, and even vented his anger at them. "Get away, God, you Jews! Ha ha ha! I have your daughter now for Jesus Christ, and she will convert to the church and become a good Christian." Fuck me. This is so fucking weird. "I haven't seen her," he said, "and I know nothing about her." Her parents returned home despondent with tears on their cheeks. Everyone who saw them felt their great tragedy in their hearts. The priest Thaddeus locked their only daughter in a secret place in the courtyard of his cloister, where it would be impossible for anyone to see her or talk to her through a window. So this priest, he seems like he's got a lot of these like just rooms for like locking random people away in, right? Okay. Is that like a common thing for like priests to have? I guess in Rosenberg's mind it is. I don't know. Andrew's Animatics. This is newish cuckold porn. It's very weird, right? Like it's not just me. This is very, very weird shit. Remember this was supposed to be a 300-year-old manuscript discovered in some like library written by like the Maharal's like son-in-law, right? In like 1600. Come on. He saw to it that she didn't lack for anything. He visited her daily to discuss the Christian religion that she would be accepting, and began to teach her the Christian prayers. Oh no, not the Christian prayers, no! But I thought Judeo-Christianity was a thing, bro. Is there really any difference, right? Oh, right. So it only works one way, right? Understood. It finally dawned on the priest that the girl was sad and gloomy. Aww. Being alone had weakened her nerves, he concluded, and the only medicine for her pain was to find a suitable groom for her, who would visit her from time to time, talk to her, and befriend her. It's like, chat, what was that company that used to write all those like trashy romance novels? They were like really big in like the 80s. I can't remember the name. It's like, oh my God. Why are you so sad? It's like 40 Shades of Goy or something. 50 Shades of Goy. Why are you so sad? The priest asked her. He consoled her and said kindly, "You won't be alone for much longer, for I'm arranging to find you a good and worthy husband, whom you will soon see." Several kilometers from Prague dwelled an old and very rich duke, who had an 18-year-old only son, good-looking, intelligent, and very learned. The priest Thaddeus was a dear and beloved friend of the duke, and was considered a member of the family. He came up with the idea of marrying the duke's only son to the Jewish only daughter who lived with him in virtual imprisonment. Okay. I mean, all right. The priest visited the Duke and mentioned his idea. He praised the only daughter exceedingly and told him her history. For them, it was a great privilege to marry a Jewish girl who had converted to Christianity. Really? Is it? This is like Bohemia in the 1600s. Like, isn't this like when the 30 Years War was all kicking off? Oh, mate, okay, like whatever, right? The priest also persuaded the only son that it would be a feather in his cap if he would succeed in getting her hand in marriage. The Duke and his only son decided Harlequin romance. Thank you, Clowntown Chronicle. Yes. The Duke and his only son decided that after their customary Sunday visit to the Prague cloister, they would remain to have lunch with the priest. He would then introduce the girl, and if they liked her, there would be consent all round. On Sunday, the old Duke and his only son came to Prague, and the priest prepared a great feast for them. When the wine had made their hearts merry, the priest sent someone to bring the girl to them. She already knew what was happening, for the priest had already told her previously to adorn herself and make herself pretty, as benefited the occasion, as today she would be called to present herself to a handsome intended groom. She did just that and appeared before them during the wine feast. Both the Duke and his son liked her very much. That day, the Duke and his son did not return home, but spent the night at the priest's residence to enable them to talk some more with the girl. So clearly, the girl is willing to go along with this, right? Like, not even Rosenberg is sort of like saying that, like, they forced the girl or they, you know, like coerced her or anything. Next day, the priest prepared another great feast. The girl was invited and sat joyfully next to the Duke's son throughout the entire meal, just like groom and bride. At the end of the banquet, each gave a hand to the other as a sign that the match was settled. They decided the wedding would take place 2 months later on the very day, just after the cardinal will officiate at her conversion to Christianity. The Duke's son gave his fiancée a gold ring containing a beautiful precious stone, R, engraved with 2 letters, the initials of his name. They departed from each other with due deference, and the Duke and his son returned home. Right. Okay. So I assume this is where it's about to get spicy. Right, how much longer is this? This is pretty. Look, we might do the rest of this next week, bros. Otherwise, I'll be here for like another half an hour. So, what's going to happen to the Jewish girl seduced by the priest into the false religion of Christianity? Like, oh my God, like, oh my God. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Golem and the Wondrous Deeds of the Maharal of Prague. I'm sure it'll have a happy ending of sort, or maybe it'll be an object lesson, right, for the Jewish girl. You know, don't you mess with the Christians, bros. They're bad news. They'll you know, fill you full of wine and say nice things to you, and then find you like a rich and powerful husband who you will fall in love with. What the fuck? Yes, but you don't understand. He's not Jewish. You know, my daughter was promised 3,000 years ago to the rabbi. I don't fucking know. Did we get any super chats at all? Saydays. Wait, hang on. Ko-Fi's got me like doing a security verification. Yes, Clowntown Chronicle for $5. Thank you very much, Sharon. I appreciate that. I will use that for like a beer. Anything else? I think that's it. Thank you very much, guys. I will see you next week for another episode about this. We'll get to find out. Thank you for coming, guys. I will see you next week. And come to the stream tomorrow night. Good night, everyone.